Alrighty, so we are pretty much done with our discussion on the first refinements. We have discussed many items so far. You definitely want to make sure you digest them and study them carefully. And the only thing left is about discharging this proof obligation related to relative deadlock freedom, especially for the refinement model, which we talk about how you can formulate it. And I think the best approach to go about this is to really have you actually try this proof yourself. And you don't need to pause the video. I'm going to end the video very soon after some quick summary, but I would suggest try this proof yourself using the relevant rules from the 3 example sets of inference rule that we spoke about earlier, right? Where can you find a solution? You can definitely either go over the slides, which was kind of divided into 2 parts, 2 phases. And another way to go is you can download this particular PDF notes from your lecture site over here. If you go there, it's about the first refinements for the new events. If you go all the way to the final page, the resolution is pretty good, so you can definitely zoom in to actually see the different parts of the proof, right? You can see that's a complete proof tree, and that'll be the step you have to follow, right? The solution is already there, but I would suggest for the best of your learning, you want to make sure you're able to see exactly how each step is supposed to take place. We only got about less than 10 minutes left for this week's lecture. I really don't want to run overtime, but I'm going to say if you really got trouble understanding the proof, you can definitely put on a Q&A. I can definitely go over some parts with you on the Q&A. More than happy to do so. But you got to do your part first by trying first. All right. Let me give you some quick guidance about how to do this proof. Very quick guidance, right? As usual, the hints will be these are the relevant inference rule that you actually may want to consider. That will be the hints. And let me just make it clear, it's going to be exercise for you, like homework. Right? I'm going to put a sticker over here. So that means we got 2 homework exercises. Well, 2 additional homework exercises, actually. There are other exercises I assigned to you earlier as well. Right? You can think about this is the very original deadlock freedom proof obligation you want to discharge. Phase number 1. I'm going to give this particular ending sequence to you that's more like an intermediate point. You want to think about how can you actually go from this one over here gradually to this one over here. Once you get to that part, it will be the beginning point for the second phase of the proof. And from here, you also got to consider the relevant inference rules over here to discharge it. But I would say this one turns out to be very similar to what we did earlier. All right. So I would say these are the 2 parts I want you to think about. For the first part, going from beginning until the middle point, and the second part from the middle point all the way until the leaf of the tree for the proof tree. All right. So these are the 2 exercises I would really like you to really try to do. Right. If you don't do it now, you might do it maybe during the test or exam, which is not that pleasant. You definitely want to do the exercise. All right. I'm gonna leave that to you. But of course, if you got any trouble understanding the insight about a proof, which I mentioned quite many in the earlier proofs, but if you got trouble, ask me during the Q&A or reach out to me. All right, exercises. All right, exercise number 1 and also exercise number 2. You can feel free to print out the page I'm including over here, or you can simply write it out on your piece of paper. No problem. Either way. All right. Assuming that you're going to do this and then also clarify any doubts with me, let me now try to summarize about the first refinements we have done. Right. Okay. This is just a solution. Let's now look at that. Right. That's exactly what you're going to do. But let's now try to summarize about the first refinement, which we fully proved. The final version for our first refinement and why it's provably correct. But remember, correctness is really with respect to certain criteria. So what have we proved? Before I show you the bullet point, think about it, right? We have proved establishment of concrete invariance for which events? The concrete version for the inits. We have proved the preservation for concrete invariance for what events? For the concrete events, including both the old and the new events, right? And also we have proof about the strengthening of guards. In that case, which events did we prove about the strengthening of guards? Concrete events, but specifically about the old events only. All those events that actually got their abstract counterpart. Those are the ones we want to prove that guards actually are strengthened with respect to the abstract guards. for their abstract counterpart. And then we talk about convergence, right? How you can prove convergence, or also known as lifelong freedom or non-divergence. They are really talking about the same thing. Which event do we have to prove about convergence? Well, only the new events, right? Because each new event is simulated by the skip event at the abstract model, in which case you want to make sure you don't really have a system trace that simply just skip all the way. It's similar to writing a while true loop. Finally, we prove about relative deadlock freedom, right? And that's actually for all the events, right? So here, right, all the events. That's why I didn't really mention about which event, just all the events. That'll be the summary of the model. Let me talk about it very quickly, and then we are done for this week. And I think that'll be enough for you to study for this week. Let's now try to compare very quickly. We got the abstract model over here. We got the concrete model over here. And in the case of guard strengthening, right, let's think about which part of the model will be involved for every one of them, right? Let's say in the case of guard strengthening, how about I use this? In the case of guard strengthening, what we had to prove is somehow the concrete guard over here for the concrete events, the concrete guard implies the corresponding abstract guard. So this is one case, right? And also the concrete guard over here for MLN somehow entails the MLN guard over here, right? So that's the guard strengthening. What about invariance establishment? So that'll be about init events, which will be this part over here. It really should establish all the concrete invariants over here, right? What about invariant preservation? Invariant preservation is really about the concrete and abstract, so the concrete events, including the old and new events, can preserve the concrete invariant, right? There will be some hypotheses, but the goal is really to prove about the concrete invariance. So for that one there, we talk about the ML out, ML in, and also we talk about IL in, and also IL out, right? So these four, all to do with the preservation of the same invariant conditions over here. But it's more about the inductive cases, right? About proving them being preserved. And we talk about convergence. So convergence is really about the new events. So we talk about IL in, IL out, right? Convergence is really about also introducing some variance, right? That's really important to think about, understand the variance. Well, we want to make sure the variance is actually always non-positive, and also you'll be strictly decreased by the value of strictly decreased by the action of the new events, right? And you can think about this part over here, and also this part over here, right? So that'll be for the new events over here. Finally, we talk about deadlock freedom. So deadlock freedom is really the final concept over here. Deadlock freedom has to do with the disjunction of the abstract guard. Disjunction of the abstract guard over here entail the disjunction of the concrete guard, right? Concrete guard over here, concrete guard, and concrete guard, right? We also gave you the intuition diagram about how to understand that from a visual point of view. It's a very quick summary about what we actually achieved in the past few weeks about the first refinements. I think for the bridge controller we got in the textbook, we actually got two more refinements to cover. I'll see how we can do, because we only got some limited number of weeks left for the semester. I'll try to cover at least one more refinements, and then we have to move on to maybe another example in another application domain. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, stay tuned. I'll see you next week for the new contents, but for now, you definitely will have quite a bit to really study and also take notes of and also digest. All right, I'll see you next week.